and welcome to WASA Distance Education. This is PLAR English, and I'm Andrea. So last class we didn't quite have enough time to discuss all of assignment 11 on punctuation, so we'll start by finishing that up. And then we will talk about assignment 12, which is all about complete sentences. So I have a quick activity to go through and help explain that assignment. And then we will talk about assignments 13, 14, and 15. Assignment 13 is all about word meanings from context. I'll tell you more when we get there. And then assignments 14 and 15, they're both about newspaper article comprehension. So the different parts of a newspaper article and answering questions about newspaper articles. So we have a lot to cover today, and I'm excited. Okay, so just finishing up punctuation. This is where we left off last class, talking specifically about using the right kind of punctuation at the end of a sentence and using apostrophes correctly. So I'll just go through the correct answers. So I have 4 sentences here that I used as examples. So the first sentence I have is, I'm the only person in this room. So the word I'm, I apostrophe M, that's a contraction. So one way to use apostrophes is with contractions. So I'm, you can write I'm or you can write I am, right? And the thing about contractions is they're less formal. You usually use contractions if you're just talking to somebody, you know, a friend or something. But if you write, say, a business letter, um, something like that, or something for work, avoid using contractions. Contractions are just meant for um, everyday conversations with people. You could also use it in, say, an email if it wasn't very formal. Um, yeah, but in a formal situation, you don't really use contractions. You would use full words. And of course, I'm the only person in this room. That's a general statement. And you always put a period at the end of a statement. A statement just gives general information. Next one, next sentence. Is that Tracy's book or is it Mary's? So when I have the name Tracy and Mary, right, we're talking about whose book it is. So the other way to use an apostrophe is to show belonging or possession. So Tracy's, Tracy apostrophe S, or Mary's, Mary apostrophe S. So whether it's Tracy's or if it could be her book, right? It could be Tracy's book or it could be Mary's book. So that's a way to use an apostrophe as well. Now, there's a question mark at the end of this question. Is that Tracy's book or is it Mary's? So you always use a question mark with a question. Third one, third sentence. That's amazing. So that's, another way to say that's would be to say that is. I mean, I could say that is amazing, but I've chosen to use the contraction that's. And some of you might be interested to know that when I say the words, that's amazing, that's actually called an interjection because I'm expressing some emotion. And I mean, in this case, it's you know, um, some sort of excitement or maybe surprise at how neat something is. And when you're expressing emotion like that, you know, notice I raised my voice. That's amazing. You would put an exclamation mark at the end. The last example I have here is, can I drive the Smith's car? Then I have a note under it. And Smiths, right? It's their car. The car belongs to them. So I have an apostrophe here. But the thing is that their name ends in S. So don't worry, none of the questions that you answer for assignment 11 will end in S like this. But I just wanted to explain what you do when you want to show possession and you have a name that ends in S. Let me just read this sentence again. Can I drive the Smith's car? Right? Or another way to say it, can I drive their car? But we want to use the name of the people, right? So the Smiths, right? Their car. So what I've done is I've put the apostrophe after the S, S-M-I-T-H-S apostrophe, because it's their car that I'm talking about, the car that belongs to them. And then, of course, this is a question too, right? So there's a question mark at the end. Can I drive the Smith's car? Okay, so this is what we didn't have time for. Well, it's commas, and then we'll talk about semicolons and colons as well. I don't want to get too deep into this because it's all in the textbook. And then I thought I would focus on sharing examples to help explain the different rules. I think that would help the most. There's just so much information to know about using punctuation. But the textbook lists off 5 rules for using commas. Let me just read them out. So the first rule, commas can be placed before a conjunction when joining 2 independent main clauses. Another way to explain this is, let's say you want to say 2 things. Maybe something like, I like nachos. And then another thing that you want to say is, I like pizza. Well, both of these things are related, right? Because you're talking about 2 things that you like. So you could put those 2 sentences into one sentence, and you could say something like, I like nachos, comma, and I like pizza. So now you have one sentence. And if you did that, when I write this out, if I say I like nachos, you can tell I'm hungry. It's dinner time almost. I like nachos. Before I use that word and, right? And is an example of a conjunction, right? A coordinating conjunction to be more specific. I like nachos, comma, and I like pizza. So the trick is to figure out that you actually have 2 sentences that you've put together. And so you know that when you're connecting them with that comma, with the conjunction, of course, you know that you need to put a comma before that conjunction. Okay, second rule. Commas are placed between 2 adjectives that are modifying a noun. Okay, so if you're describing something, right, a noun could be a person, place, or thing. If that's being described, you're using adjectives to describe it. That's what they mean by modifying a noun. You're just describing something. That's how you use adjectives. So they gave some examples, the old, comma, rusty bucket, or the simple, comma, green dress. Right? Now, you might have 3. You might have new red expensive car. Okay? And you could list off as many adjectives as you want to describe something. I mean, if you have too many, then you know it might be overwhelming for the person reading about what you're describing, but that's what you do. If you have more than one adjective that's describing something, you need to put commas in between. Rule 3, commas are placed between items in a list or series. So I'll have more examples, but there are 2 situations here. And actually, it kind of shows just one example, one situation in your textbook here where they have, I have to do these things, or we need these things. So I'll just read one off. I have to shower, comma, shave, comma, and brush my teeth before going out. So you can see that there are a whole bunch of things that the person has to do. I could also say something like, please bring the following items to the birthday party. And then I could list them. Ice cream, comma, chocolate sauce, comma, sprinkles, comma, and bananas. Right. So I've taken the second example that's in your textbook and I changed it a little bit. So the list could be part of what you're explaining, or you could literally tell people that you have a list. And either way, no matter how you're using that list, you need to use commas with it. Fourth one, commas are placed following a person's name before his or her title. Okay, so this is really just a case of you know, you tell somebody someone's name and then you tell them what they do, and then you continue your sentence. So in this example, it says Jean Chrétien, the former prime minister, will assist in the fundraising. I don't know if you could hear me pause there, but that's because there are commas. There's a comma after his name, and then there's a comma after minister, right? After describing what his job is. So Jean Chrétien, comma, the former prime minister, comma, will assist in the fundraising, right? So there's a comma here and there's a comma here. And I've added a sixth rule, and it actually goes with the sixth rule because we don't have to let people know that he's the former prime minister. That's extra information that we've put in the middle of our sentence. And when we have extra information, we need to put commas around it, right? We could also just say Jean Chrétien will assist in the fundraising, right? We could just say that. But we want to add that he's the former prime minister, right? So we put commas around those words, the former prime minister. Number 5, commas are placed before or after a dependent clause in a sentence. Well, let me just read the example here. After the rain, comma, the streets looked very clean. All right, so you can think of this as like, you know, somebody could just say to you, they could just say the streets looked very clean, right? But instead of just saying that, I'm also explaining that it happened after the rain. Okay, and after the rain, it's like a short phrase, and the reason it's called a dependent clause is because the words after the rain, by themselves, those words do not make a full sentence. So you can say them, but you need to put a comma after them. So after the rain, comma, the streets looked very clean. And in order for the whole sentence to make sense, you need all of those words. You need to say the streets looked very clean at the end, because otherwise the person reading it, right, if all they read was after the rain, they'd be wondering, what do you mean after the rain? What happened after the rain, right? There's a question left unanswered. So one really easy way to tell whether or not you have a complete thought or a full sentence is to think, well, does the person reading this, do they understand what I'm trying to say? Or is there some information missing? All right. All right, so the sixth rule I've added, and I already mentioned it, but I'll just share my example again. So this time, you know, we don't have an explanation of what the person does or what their job is. We just have information about what's going on. So let me read my example. The chef, comma, noticing that everyone was hungry, comma, started cooking faster. So what I want you to notice is that, ooh, I found a typo. It should say notice how. I have the word hot here for some reason. So notice how you get a full sentence with these words. You get a full sentence with this. The chef started cooking faster. That makes a full sentence. And then all we've done is added some words into the middle of the sentence and put commas around them. All right, so the chef, comma, noticing that everyone was hungry, comma, started cooking faster. So you put commas around added information. Okay, so let's go through some practice here. So the first one that I have is, I'll just read it and then I'll add the commas after. The weather was cold, but we still went sledding. So I'm just going to circle this word but, okay? Because but is a conjunction. It's a coordinating conjunction. I'll be specific. And I just wanted to mention too, and I mentioned this last class, but I have a separate video and notes all about conjunctions on my website in the spelling and grammar section of my website. So you can check that out as well. So this is what I would do. every time you have a coordinating conjunction, you always put a comma before that coordinating conjunction. So what we'll end up with is the weather was cold, comma, but we still went sledding. The weather was cold, comma, but we still went sledding. Always put a comma before a coordinating conjunction. Okay, I have 6 examples and we're on number 2. Second sentence, Yolanda went outside, started the car, and drove away. So what's happening here is that there are a bunch of things that Yolanda did, a series of things that she did. And you can think of that as being like a list. Okay, so we need to use commas here. And I'll just add them to what I have written already. Yolanda went outside, comma, started the car, comma, and drove away. So you can see that there's a comma after the first thing that she did, a comma after the second thing that she did. Right? All right, number 3. Since it is winter, we should go skiing. Well, what should you notice about this sentence? Well, the words we should go skiing, that could make a sentence by itself, right? Okay. So there's more information added onto the beginning, the words since it is winter. But if all I said to you was since it is winter, if that was all I said, if I didn't say anything else after that, you would be confused because you'd wonder, well, what do you mean about winter? Why did you mention it? And that's because without the words we should go skiing after, I haven't fully explained my thought. It would be an incomplete thought, an incomplete sentence. So what you need to do, all right, and I'll just start writing it here, is you start off, you say, since it is winter, okay, and this is our dependent clause, meaning that in order for us to make sense, we need to say something after we've said these words, right? And these words, that's your clause, right? Since it is winter, that's your dependent clause. So since it is winter, comma, we should go skiing. Okay. So that's number 3. Let's look at our last 3 examples now of using commas, and then we'll get into some different punctuation. Okay, number 4. Cleaning, for example, is something that not everyone likes. I don't know if you could hear me pausing. And a trick is that when you see commas or when you're using commas and you're speaking out loud, you want to use commas. You want to pause. Okay, so cleaning, comma, for example, comma, is something that not everyone likes. So in this case, all that's happened is the words for example have been added to the middle of the sentence. Strange, I know, but it happens. Okay, so we don't even need the words for example. We could just say cleaning is something that not everyone likes. That would be a full sentence. But we've added words in, so we need to put commas around those words. We need to put commas around for example. So you have cleaning, comma, for example, comma, is something that not everyone likes. And I don't know, you might see that in your assignment somewhere, the words for example like that. And just remember to put commas around them. All right, number 5, my 5th example. Their teacher, Ms. Cole, really likes to talk. It's true, I do. Okay, so I could take out the name if I wanted. I could just say their teacher really likes to talk. But I've decided to add in the name of the teacher. So their teacher, comma, Ms. Cole, comma, really likes to talk. Number 6, Clara Seeing the pot overflowing, turned down the stove. Clara, comma, seeing the pot overflowing, comma, turned down the stove. So I put commas around the extra words, the extra little information that I put in the middle of the sentence, seeing the pot overflowing. I put commas around that. So I don't need those words. I could just say Clara turned down the stove. But when I add the words seeing the pot overflowing to the middle, it makes my sentence more interesting. Clara, comma, seeing the pot overflowing, turned down the stove. So you can see that I actually have 3 examples on the same page where I have words added to the middle of the sentence. And this is because there are actually several questions in assignment 11 that are like this. So you notice I've got commas around the words for example. I've got commas around a name, and I've got commas around a whole bit of information that I've added in the middle about what's going on. Okay, continuing on. All right, then your textbook goes into colons and semicolons. And I even have a separate video and notes about this as well, colons and semicolons. So if you feel like you need to know more, feel free to check that out. And that's also on my website in my spelling and grammar section. And anything that I mention, I can also send up as on a USB. So if anybody doesn't have internet or can't access the internet, let me know and I can send you resources a different way. Okay, so colons. There are 2 ways that your textbook mentions using them to introduce a list. She has 3 things, colon, money, brains, and charm. Or in business letters, dear sir or madam, colon. Okay. And then they talk about semicolons. So the way that your textbook describes it is that they are stronger than a comma and in place of but. So we could say peace is difficult, comma, but war is hell. So you see, we could have 2 separate sentences. You could say peace is difficult, and then we could say war is hell. But we've put them together into one sentence. Peace is difficult, comma, but war is hell. And the reason why your textbook uses the coordinating conjunction but as an example in particular is because it will work. It will always work, you know, where basically all you do is you, instead of putting comma but, you put a semicolon in. So instead of having peace is difficult, comma, but war is hell, you say peace is difficult, semicolon, war is hell, right? And so again, your textbook uses this specific example because when we're talking about semicolons, using semicolons and going from using a comma and a coordinating conjunction and then switching that for a semicolon, it doesn't always work. And in my extra video and notes on conjunctions, I explain this in a lot more detail. I don't have time to go into it today, but if you want to know more, check that out. I recommend it. In terms of the assignment though, this will give you the information that you need, right? This idea that instead of putting comma but, you're putting a semicolon in, okay? So I have some examples here. The instructions say follow the rules to add either a semicolon, to add either a colon or a semicolon to each sentence below. So I'll just read the first sentence. Carl called several times. No one was home to answer the phone. Right? So we're going to use a semicolon instead of the coordinating conjunction. So Carl called several times, semicolon, no one was home to answer the phone. So we're putting a semicolon instead of saying Carl called several times, but no one was home to answer the phone. Right? And I actually was looking at the time here, and we only have time to go through 2 examples, and you can check out the notes after class for the other 2. All right, just make sure we don't run out of time today. All right, so now here's an example with a colon. All right, and because we're talking about sentences here, we don't need to worry about the business letter rule, but later on when we talk about assignment 21, I'll remind you, okay? So if we're looking at this sentence, please purchase these items from the grocery store: water, cheese, milk, and cookies. The words, please purchase these items from the grocery store, those words are introducing a list, okay? And that list is the things that I'm saying to purchase, all right? I have a list: water, cheese, milk, and cookies, right? And before that list of things, I put a colon. So a colon has two dots, right? Please purchase these items from the grocery store, colon or dot dot. I'll make them bigger, right? Water, cheese, milk, and cookies. Okay, and then I just have my other examples, just give you two more examples using a semicolon and then a colon. Um, and and um, you can check those out in the notes after class. And I might even edit this video. I don't know. We'll see how much time I have. Okay, so the last part before we can move on to the next assignment is what your textbook has to say about using quotation marks. Okay, so the first thing is that talks about showing that there is dialogue that is spoken. The easiest way to explain dialogue is to say that it happens in books that you might read, where different characters in the story are talking, right? And often you'll see the word said or says or spoke or asked, okay? So here in this example, they said, comma, quotation mark, how are you, question mark, quotation mark. So the words that they said, they asked, how are you, right? And around those words are quotation marks. So this is what quotation marks look like. The easiest way for me to describe it is like they almost look like the letter 66, right, to start off with, and you'll have your words that were said in the middle, and then it's kind of like a 99 at the end, kind of. If you can see the screen, you can see what I'm talking about. So that's what a quotation mark looks like. And again, so that's one way, right, with dialogue. And then they talk about titles of short stories or even titles of movies, right? Slang words, he is nuts, or direct quotes. All that is let's say at some point somebody in real life was saying something to you, or maybe you read it, or maybe you heard it somewhere that a real person actually said. And then, you know, you're explaining that this is what the person said to you. Well, the words that the person said would need to have quotation marks around them. Okay, so let's go through the first example. So Sheila asked, right? So this is dialogue, right? Sheila asked, comma, when will dinner be ready? Question mark. Sheila asked, when will dinner be ready? So we need to put quotation marks around the words, when will dinner be ready? Number 2, you should read The Secret Garden because it is a great story. So we have a title of a book, so we need to put quotation marks around The Secret Garden. Number 3, the new drama series always gives me the feels. Okay, so this idea of feels, that's like slang. Okay, so because it's slang, we put quotation marks around it. Number 4, my friend always told me that you can't worry about things that you have no control over. So we need to put words around you can't worry about things that you have no control over, because those are the words that your friend told you, the exact words that your friend told you. Okay, so I have this explained as being a subject and predicate game, but really all it is I want to explain how when you look at a sentence, every sentence has two basic parts to it, a subject and a predicate. The subject is who or what does the action, right? And then the predicate is everything that comes after the subject, right? So what I have here is I have boxes here where I'm going to put my subjects in. And that's because in assignment 12, what you need to do is put a box around the subject. And then after you've done that, then you underline the predicate. And like I said, the predicate is everything that comes after the subject. So really all you need to figure out for assignment 12 is what the subjects are, right? Because then you just underline everything that comes after it. Now in this little activity here, I have some words in blue, all right? And they're all verbs. So I have were, second one. I have two verbs, and it's possible to have two verbs in a sentence. I have meowed and worried. What might meow? I wonder. Anyways, then I have will travel. And then the fourth sentence, I have helps. Okay. And now I've got some subjects here. Okay. Now, remember I said meowed and worried. Well, the only thing here that could meow would be a cat, because I've got she, Robin and Frank, the cat, and determination. So I'm pretty sure that people aren't going to be meowing. I mean, they could. And determination certainly wouldn't be meowing, that's for sure. But a cat would. So we'll take the cat. So that's our first subject. Okay. And then we have she, Robin, and Frank, and determination. So we have were, okay, and were is the past tense of the verb to be. And that verb also needs to go with a subject that has more than one person. You know, you could say they were, right? But instead we're going to say Robin and Frank were. Okay. So we have 2 out of 4 subjects. So what do we have left here? We have someone will travel and something helps. Okay, so how about she will travel and then determination helps. Okay. Now, if you have a subject and a verb, right? Robin and Frank were, right? People could just be, right? But sometimes it doesn't make a very good sentence like that, right? So that's why we add on more words. So maybe how about Robin and Frank were quite tired at the end of the day. That would work, okay? So what I have is I have the subject, Robin and Frank, and that whole thing would have a box around it. So the subject can include words like and or the, right? So Robin and Frank is our subject, and then we're quite tired at the end of the day. That's the predicate. Second one, the cat meowed and worried. This would work after the human left. The cat meowed and worried after the human left. So I'm just adding more words to make better sentences, okay? And then all you need to remember is that all of these words that come after our subjects, that's the predicate. So in number 2, the subject is the cat, and the predicate is meowed and worried after the human left. Number 3, she will travel, I wonder where. How about this will work? She will travel to Toronto with her sister. So in sentence 3, the subject is she, and the predicate is will travel to Toronto with her sister. Number 4, determination helps. Helps who or what? Let's see, this will work. Determination helps people when they face a challenge. Determination helps people when they face a challenge. So the subject, the part that you would put a box around, is determination, and then the predicate, everything that comes after the subject, is helps people when they face a challenge. So these examples should all help with assignment 12. Assignment 12 is all about complete sentences. And then I just have like a summary note here, everything that I've already mentioned, where I remind you that the subjects are on the left and the predicates are on the right. And then I give you some things to remember, and I've already talked about them. Okay, so assignment 13. Assignment 13 is all about word meanings from context. So the instructions, the instructions say use the context to help you choose the best meaning or synonym for each highlighted word. So number 1, so basically you'll kind of read a situation and then there'll be a word in there and you have to figure out what that word means. So let me read this out. George is an expert at memorizing things. He can remember the exact words someone says and then he can repeat them verbatim. Not many people have such a good memory. So the question says the word verbatim means. So let's think about the situation. Okay. So we've got George. He memorizes things really well. Specifically, he remembers the exact words that someone says and repeats them verbatim. Okay. So someone says something and then he just says exactly what they just said. Because his memory is so good. Not many people have such a good memory. So thinking about what the word verbatim means, and you pick the right answer. So you pick one answer. So the word verbatim means A, in a different way, B, in the future, C, in the same words, or D, in a short time. So one strategy is to eliminate the answers that we know aren't the right answers. I mean, we know that it's not in the future, right? And we know that it's not in a different way because we just said he can remember the exact words that someone says. So he's not doing it differently and he's not doing it in the future. So either it's in the same words or it's in a short time. Well, this doesn't say anything about how quickly he repeats the words, right? So we know that the right answer is C, in the same way. In the same words. In the same words. Same words like the exact same words, right? The word verbatim means in the same words. So you could write in the same words in the blank, or you could just write C in the blank, or you could circle C, as long as I know which answer you've chosen. And of course, what you'll see in your workbook will be different. These are just examples. Number 2, his advice was invaluable. I would not have succeeded without his help. Invaluable. Invaluable. So this is actually the opposite of well, not the opposite of valuable. Um, it's kind of like another way of saying um, very valuable, right? I'll, I'll sort of give you the definition here. It's like saying very valuable. The word invaluable is like saying very valuable. So if something is invaluable, it is A, it is not important, B, it is very important, um, C, it is boring, or D, it is interesting, right? So invaluable, so very valuable or very important, okay? So we're looking at B, right? If something is invaluable, it is very important. And we figured that out because right after I used the word invaluable, I said, I would not have succeeded without his help. So help that I need to succeed, that's important, right? Very important. All right, this is part 2. And in this part, it says, see if you can infer, sorry about the typo, see if you can infer an implied or hidden message in each of the following selections. Circle the best answer from A to D. Okay, so let me just read off this situation here. Donna knew that she was running out of time when she glanced at the clock in her car. She didn't want to be late for her meeting at work. Letting out a loud sigh, she continued to wait behind the line of cars. So what probably happened, right? So we've got Donna, she's running out of time, looks at the clock in her car, thinking about not wanting to be late for her meeting at work. And then she sighs and she's still waiting behind a line of cars. Okay, so there's a lot to sort of think about there. But what do you think happened? A, Donna slept in that morning. B, Donna got stuck in traffic. C, Donna's car broke down. Or D, Donna got lost. So you want to circle the best answer. Okay. And if we think about this whole situation, I mean, some of the answers are possible, But the best answer is that she got stuck in traffic. B, Donna got stuck in traffic. Especially because we have this detail about how she was still waiting behind a line of cars, right? I mean, that would only happen if you were stuck in traffic or if you were waiting at a car wash, I guess. But in this situation, B is the right answer. Donna got stuck in traffic. Okay, next one. It's okay, Frank said. There are only 30 boxes, and I have all day to move them one at a time. I doubt that my sore back will give out, even though each box must weigh close to 100 pounds. I will just risk permanent back damage and do this all by myself. So the trick here is to know that Frank is being sarcastic. So when people are being sarcastic, they often say the opposite of what they actually mean. Okay, I know it's weird, but that's how sarcasm works. So he doesn't actually mean this, right? He means the opposite. Okay, so what was Frank trying to say? He's basically complaining about how heavy the boxes are, really. That's what's happening. A, he didn't need any help moving the boxes. B, he was really good at moving heavy boxes. C, he had lots of time to move the boxes. Or D, he wanted someone to help him move the boxes. And D is the correct answer here. Okay, so I get that he said, right? He said that, oh, I'll just risk permanent back damage and move them, and they must weigh close to 100 pounds each. You know what? No one's going to lift 100-pound boxes one after the other, one at a time. That'd be crazy. Okay, so he was being sarcastic, and what he really was trying to say was that he wanted someone to help him move the boxes. Okay. So I think we'll just get through the first half of this, and that's okay. We'll see how we do. So we're talking about newspaper article comprehension. So this is from page 25 in your textbook. Let's just talk about the characteristics of a news article. The purpose of writing a newspaper article the purpose of writing newspaper articles is to inform readers about current events. For example, let's say that a writer writes about a hockey tournament. In this case, the writer's purpose is to tell people about how each hockey team is playing. Journalists bring stories that are both relevant and interesting to the public. The following list outlines what is newsworthy. Okay, so newsworthy just means it's interesting, right? And I don't want to read the whole list. I just want to focus on the first option here. It involves important events and or people about whom the audience is concerned. So when you're doing assignments 14 and 15, that's the kind of article that you'll have. You'll have an article that talks about an important event. Okay, so it will already be newsworthy. Okay. So journalists try to represent different points of view honestly by using clear and factual language so readers can draw their own conclusions about the event being reported. Most stories follow similar structure and contain many of the same components. So we're going to talk about those components now. So a typical newspaper article contains 5 parts. And I have a picture on the next page. So I'll go through the picture, but your textbook talks about the parts of a newspaper article. And we'll get into that when I get to the picture. And it also mentions 2 other parts that a newspaper can have. So here we have an example. Okay, so the first part of a newspaper article is the headline. So you can think of the headline as being the title of the article. So I could call an article, this is just something that I made up to give you an example in your textbook. Students read about newspaper article format. That's the title. So that's what the whole article is about. And then I've got underneath, I have by Andrea Cole, WASA teacher. So that's what you call a byline. Okay. Now for assignment 14, the 2 important things to know is that articles can also have, you could also have a photo and a caption. So you can see in this picture, you've got some people standing around with newspaper articles, and it looks like maybe they might be on a train or a subway or something like that. Okay, so we have a picture, and then we have a caption, And the caption says, WASA students learn about the parts of a newspaper article while riding the subway. So you have a picture that shows you more about what's going on, and you also have a caption that explains a little bit. And then you have the actual article itself. Okay, and we'll get into that some more um, when I explain further. So just remember here, this is what I want you to remember, because I've noticed that sometimes it's not entirely clear, but for assignment 14, you need to read the headline, look at the photo, and read the caption on page 28 of your textbook. So your textbook has this example that explains the parts of a newspaper article. But then when you actually do assignment 14, it's page 28 that you want to look at. And today in class, we are going to look at a different example again, another different example. So let's do that right now. So I'm talking about an example to help with assignment 14, question 1. So this is just an example. So the question will say this, it'll say, look at the following headline, and it'll give you a headline, and then it'll ask you, what do you think the article is about? So the first question for assignment 14 is all about reading the headline and explaining what you think the article is about, just based on that headline. So you have no other information except a headline. So the headline here that we have is, Moose has arm like a cannon. Okay, now you might think that the article is about a moose that throws things. But you might also think, okay, well, maybe Moose is a last name, right? So maybe you say something like this. I think the article, and it's whatever you think it's about, right? There's no perfect answer here. I think the article is about someone with a really strong arm, right? Someone with a really strong arm. That's a full sentence. That's definitely possible. You'd get full marks for that kind of answer. Okay, then you get to question 2. And question 2 will say, look at the photo and read the caption. What specific information does the photo give you about the article? What specific information does the caption give you about the article? So we have a picture here. I'll just describe it for anybody listening, and you can see that it looks like some kind of field, maybe a playground in the background. You've got a guy that looks like he's got a stopwatch around his neck, and he's wearing a bright red t-shirt, and he's watching this young man, like a teenager, throwing something. Um, and then there's another person watching in the background too. Okay, so and then the caption, so that's the photo. So the photo can tell us quite a bit. You know, why does he have stopwatch? You know, what is he throwing? Where is this happening? Sort of thing. Okay, so, and then the caption, the words underneath the photo say this: Colby Moose of Poplar Hill First Nation launches a softball. Okay, so we can answer this question with 2 sentences. Okay. Because remember, the question says, look at the photo and read the caption. What specific information does the photo give you about the article? What specific information does the caption give you about the article? So you could say something like this. You could say, the photo tells me that that a young man is throwing something, and someone is timing him, maybe. Okay, because remember I talked about the guy that had the stopwatch around his neck. So why else would you have a stopwatch? Maybe you're timing it, right? Maybe he's throwing and he's timing it. Okay, now don't forget about the caption, right? The caption tells me that the young man's name is Colby Moose. He is from Poplar Hill First Nation. And he is throwing a softball. So the caption tells me that the young man's name is Colby Moose. He is from Poplar Hill First Nation, and he is throwing a softball. So that would fully explain what the photo and the caption tells you. Now, I mean, you could put it together into one sentence. You know, you could say something like, the photo and the caption tell me that that a young man named Colby Moose is throwing a softball and someone is timing him, right? For example. So you don't have to have two separate sentences, but I just thought it would be easier to answer in two sentences to make sure that you're answering the question fully, because what I'm looking for is complete sentence answers, right? And I'm looking for you to explain both the part about the photo and the part about the caption. So those three things for a complete answer. Okay, now we don't have enough time to get through this today, but I will explain it. And then next class we'll start off here. It won't take us very long. It's a short article. And then you know what? It'll give us an opportunity to just very briefly remind you of the difference between a newspaper article and a short story. So there are two different kinds of reading comprehension that you need to do in this course. The first kind is newspaper article comprehension. All right, so there's certain parts of a newspaper article that you need to understand in order to answer questions about it. But then when we talk about short stories, there's also different parts of a short story that you need to understand in order to be able to answer questions about a short story. Okay, but the reason why we're starting with a newspaper article is because the strategies that you use to understand a newspaper article, you can use the same kind of strategies to understand a short story. Let me explain that. So we have I'll just go through the questions that we'll be answering. So we'll be reading another example, and the first question will be, what important information is in the lead? So let me just say, for anybody that does want to work ahead and do assignment 15, okay, the lead is the first paragraph, okay? So this is the lead. The lead is the first paragraph. So if you are answering a question about the lead, you only need to look at the first paragraph. Forget about the rest of it. To answer question 1, look at just the first paragraph. Question 2, who would be an appropriate audience for this article? Well, in order to answer question 2, we need to read the whole article. So that's why we don't have enough time to get into that today, but we will get into it next class for sure. Okay, so another way of explaining appropriate audience would be, who would want to read this article? Right? Who would want to read this article? That's the sort of thing that we're wondering. So we need to read it first to decide who we think would want to read it. What was the writer's purpose for writing this article? Okay, why is the person sharing this information, right? Somebody wrote this for a certain reason. Why? Why? Right? Why did the person write this article? And then we'll talk about the 5 W's and H. So who, what, where, when, why, and how. And we need to read the article to find that information. So that's what we have to look forward to next class. Thank you to everybody who was listening, and I will see you on Monday. All right, have a good night. Thanks. Bye.